Right, what's happening, people, and welcome back to Joey and Josh. And today's episode is going to see us rank the top 5 all-time British UK comedies. It is a subject that is going to divide a lot of the viewers, and we very much want your top 5 in the comment section. We have both compiled our lists, haven't we, Josh? Got a few contrasting opinions on here.
We have, but we also get along as well. I feel like we've got some that we definitely agree on. But yeah, there's going to be some in there that, you know, divide opinion.
I set a little challenge for the viewers right now. Before we even get into any of them, put your predictions of who we're going to have in our top 5, or what series we're going to have comedies in our top 5 right now.
And also let us know your lists. I'm really interested to see what people say.
100%.
And while you're there, slap the subscribe button.
Right across the face.
Really hard.
Right in the kisser.
Faster and quicker than a Joey Knight jab. Which is pretty quick.
There you go. Pretty quick.
Yeah.
Pretty quick. Right. I am going to start you off, and I'm going to start off from the top. The only, in my opinion, number 1 when it comes to any list of British comedy. And I'm going to go one better than that. Any list of British show made. And that, my friends, is The Office. So The Office is one of the first of its kind, especially when it comes to the UK in terms of mockumentary sitcoms, and so much so that it actually took quite a few people an episode or two to realise that this show even was a sitcom rather than a documentary. One of the reasons being that, unlike Only Fools and Horses and other shows, there was no laughter track. It was a cast of pretty much unknown actors at the time, and the other was probably the cinematography. It was very dry. It was very grey, and the sense of humour was also very dry, very cringe, and I absolutely loved it. Unlike its American remake, which definitely got a lot better after season 1 when they sort of went their own way with things, it was very subtle. And I would actually say that some of the storylines in the UK Office were slower to marinate, despite there being way less seasons than the American remake. And the characters, for me, were a lot more relatable, a lot more believable. And it was the UK's introduction to a man that is now a global icon, in my opinion, in David Brent.
Oh, he's Elaine. She left you yet? Yeah. All right, see you then. She has left him. I forgot about that.
But not only this, the backup cast was unbelievable. And funnily enough, it was the relationship of Tim and Dawn that was actually the real storyline of this show, which you kind of began to understand as it went on.
Where do you want your kiss? Where do you want your kiss?
That's all right.
Well,
I'm giving the pound.
Got to have a kiss.
I don't have to have a kiss.
Ooh.
Gareth Keenan was one of the greatest characters to ever grace British TV, in my opinion.
If you do go all the way with Tim and you expect me to go in there afterwards, make sure he wears a condom.
And the realness of not only the relationships between the characters, but their growth within each other with just a 2-series format and a Christmas special is what makes it the best ever British TV show made, period, for me. Not just comedy, greatest ever British TV show.
So I've got to come clean. I haven't ever seen The Office.
Josh, you are a fucking disgrace. Honestly.
What have I missed out on?
Everything. Life. Life. My whole perception of you. Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is with The Office, right? You know, like, it's so cult-like that if I meet someone, and they know The Office line for line, they are instantly a high caliber of human being.
You know they're going to be friends.
We're friends for life. I don't care if you're a serial killer. If you know The Office line for line, me and you are going to get on. That's what it is. But no, in all seriousness, right, I think, like, the reason I say it's the greatest one is there's only 2 seasons of it. Obviously, there's a Christmas special as well. In those 2 seasons, you actually, apart from, like, the odd night out they do, or when they go to the pub for like a work drinks type thing, you never see any of these characters outside of The Office. So you don't meet their family, you don't see them in their home life, you don't see any of that, yet every single person will tell you they feel like they know the characters from a psychological aspect inside out. Like, the character development in this show is what makes it so good. And Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, for this to be their first sort of official project together, I know they've done radio bits and pieces before, but their first thing that was put out on TV, it is just an absolute masterpiece. It is done to perfection.
Yeah, so tell me a few of your favourite moments then in the show. And also, I tell you what, right, give me a few characters that you liked as well, because like obviously Gervais is going to be dominant in this show, right? But there are so many other sort of characters that you loved.
So David Brent's obviously the star of the show, right? He's the manager of The Office, if you haven't seen it. The thing is, right, it really displayed Ricky Gervais's acting chops, because there's not many shows, if any, that in the same episode can have you in fits of laughter, but then also flooding in tears. And his ability to be able to act in that way of having you cracking up laughing, even if it was cringy laughing, but then having you so emotional in the same episode is something like I've never seen before.
David, unfortunately, it's not really up to you.
No, okay then.
Sorry.
All right then. Well, I'm asking. Okay? Please don't make me redundant.
Also, Tim and Dawn are the UK's equivalent to Ross and Rachel. It's like a will they, won't they relationship that goes on throughout the whole series.
Nailed him.
But the best episode in the whole series for me is Training Day. So I'm sure you've worked in office environments before when like they get these like motivational type people to come in and they teach you like how to deal with your clients, how to sell better, how to navigate your work life more efficiently and get along better and manage well as a team and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So they bring a guy like this in, and very quickly David Brent, the office manager who's an egomaniac, realizes that everyone's come away from their workstations and all of a sudden all of their attention is on one person and one person only, which is the guy who is being paid by the powers that be above him to take the seminar. And it's at this point that David Brent's ego kicks in and he realizes, I need to be the main event and I need all of this attention on me.
I don't care.
I think you'll care
what
when I
you
tell
think.
you what the complaint
care.
is. I think there's been a rape up there.
So in the end, the guy that's holding the seminar pretty much just admits defeat and thinks, I'm not stooping to this guy's level. He's being paid to come and take this seminar, and he literally just lets David Brent do what he wants in the end, which plays out perfectly for David Brent because he is then able to make the day all about him, which is exactly what he would love to do.
Free love on the free love freeway.
So we know Gervais has gone on to do quite a lot after The Office, but obviously the impact of the show itself is immense, right? How would you describe it?
Mate, like, and as well, like, it's really important we mention Stephen Merchant here. It was Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, and unlike another show that we may or may not touch on this list, Stephen Merchant is actually seen on camera in The Office, but it's a blink and you miss it moment. He comes in to The Office, I think on Red Nose Day, something like that, but he's not a main character in the show, right? But he was very much like, it was 50-50 between the two of them writing and creating The Office. But the cultural impact, like when you now look at shows that went after it, right? I'm talking Come Fly With Me, This Country. The main one, I would say, People Just Do Nothing, right? People Just Do Nothing. You'll look at that and you'll go, hold on, The Office, mate. You watch that show, People Just Do Nothing is a roadman version of The Office. Not only in the mockumentary style that it's filmed in, but also like the sense of humour, the dry sarcasm, the cringe element, the fact that the characters know they're being filmed and the look to camera. Like Grinder is David Brent. Do you know what I mean? So what I'm saying is the cultural impact is there. Like it has influenced so many shows as the years went on. So that's what I've got as my number one anyway, but I'm very interested. What have you got as your number one of all time?
I'm disappointed in you, Joe. Do you know why? Because the show that I've got as my number one, I know that you love it. And I find it a little bit disingenuous that you haven't put this show at number one in your own choice.
What is it?
It's the Inbetweeners, mate.
Fucking football friend! I never thought we'd get that well.
What a show.
So if you haven't seen The Inbetweeners, The Inbetweeners was a coming-of-age story narrated by William Mackenzie. He was a British schoolboy who had suddenly moved from his pampered life in the private school system after his parents divorced to a rather rough and ready comprehensive called Rudge Park. There, he begrudgingly finds the comfort of 3 new friends, Simon, Neil and Jay, who were immense characters and ones that we'll remember for the rest of the time. And these group of lads then navigated their way through the trials and tribulations of sixth form, including first love, dodgy cars, proms, rubbish jobs, and eventually trying to lose their virginities. Through 3 show seasons and 2 movies, the show left such a lasting impression on people that there's been discussions for over 10 years about bringing it back in some form.
Do you know what, mate? It is like picking between 2 great things. You know what I mean? It's very, very hard. And obviously, I think that people of our age range will gravitate more towards The Inbetweeners maybe than The Office. But for me, The Office is just a bit more up there. But I understand it because every group of friends has a Simon. Every group of friends has a Will. Every group of friends has a Neil. And every group of friends has 1, if not 2 or 3 Jays.
Who would you be if you had to describe yourself as one of those characters? Who would you have styled yourself after?
Who do you think
It's
I'd be?
obviously Jay, isn't it?
It's definitely Jay.
It's like riding a bike, isn't it?
Who would I be? Will.
I think you would be Will.
I think I
you
would.
be Will.
I think I'll wear that with pride.
Feisty one you are.
Do you know what's funny about the guys that wrote this show? They basically said they leaned on a lot of experiences they had in their own lives. And you can see that, can't you, in some of the episodes? You just go, there's no way they could have possibly made that up. That had to have been taken from life in some way.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I've never punched a fish before. I know that, but
Punch a fish to death.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Kindest thing to do.
I better kill it. It's the kindest thing to do. It won't survive back in the sea now.
Yeah, for me, it's the reality of the show, which is why it made it so, so good. Like, we all tried to get into pubs with fake IDs. We all embarrassed ourselves in front of girls. We all got drunk and made idiots of ourselves. Tried drugs for the first time. Probably performed horrifically during our first time having sex. And then we all probably lied to our mates about those sexual encounters.
One bent over the table here. There was one up here who I was fingering, and I was just toe fucking the one on the floor.
But again, do you know what I loved about The Inbetweeners, right? It's the fact, and this is something that a lot of people say about me and you, right? It kind of shows when you look at the dynamic between like Jay and Will, complete opposites, yeah? But by the end of the series, they're 2 friends that really care about each other and stuff like that. And it shows the dynamic of how like people who are not outwardly the same in their behaviour, in their actions, can actually share deep-lying friendships and stuff like that.
Opposites attract. Right?
Yeah,
that's the way it goes. And ultimately, even when you talk about the films as well, they follow each other like around the world, halfway around the world, don't they? Like, let's
and
be honest.
it was one of the last shows that could like unfilteredly say what people had on their mind. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's again like when you talk about cultural impact, like just the little things of like the way they'll just casually like, sounds a bit pedo-ish, mate, and stuff like that. And do you know what I mean? Like, them sort of things were just so, they just hit the nail on the head perfectly. It was so in touch with teenage life at that time, wasn't it? But what I want to know from you is, what was your favourite moment from The Inbetweeners?
I think for me, we've got to go all the way back to Thorpe Park. Obviously, Simon's just got his brand new car, which was probably the worst car of all time. I think if my mum and dad bought me that, I don't know if I would have driven it.
I'd have done a Macaulay Culkin, mate. I'd have put myself up for adoption or divorced my parents.
Or just an insurance claim, which ultimately, by the way, might have happened at the end of the show.
Indicates, what is it? Give way to the fucking right.
Do you know what's funny, by the way, is all of that, and I actually saw this being recorded. I didn't even know what this show was. In Watford, where I grew up, there was sort of a road that went down towards past the David Lloyd, past Costco and on. These guys were on the back of a lorry, mate, in that car being filmed. I saw it, lights everywhere. I was just like, what the fuck is that? I didn't clock it. And then you see the scene in the show and you're like, fucking hell, that's around Watford way.
That was the one.
And you're just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, he gets the car.
Shout out the Watford hardcore.
Yeah, shout out Watford. Yeah, big AJ. You know, there's quite a lot of famous people from Watford, you know.
AJ, Elton
famous
John.
alumni, Elton John. Yeah, I could go on, George Michael.
Yep.
Could go on, you know.
I
Don't worry.
never
Who's from
wanna
Epsom?
dance again.
You know?
Who's from Epsom?
Yeah, go on.
Joey Knight. Joe
Is that
Wicks.
the biggest claim to fame?
Joe Wicks, Warwick
okay,
Davis.
Joe Wicks, that's all right. Okay. There's connections here.
Yeah.
Warwick Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What short you saying? Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say about what's coming next.
do you know what? I'll give you my favourite
So
moment.
Thorpe Park wasn't your one?
No, Thorpe Park wasn't my
You're
one.
joking me.
Thorpe Park
When you get to the end of the
wasn't-
line, you get on the ride, you're trying to push ahead to the front of the queue.
It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. And I'll admit, in the moment, I didn't know what was coming next. Again, it kind of makes it into the list of like the world's so sensitive now. You can't joke about these things.
Oh my
can
God,
you?
yeah. I don't know
We
if you can make
on
that
this
joke.
podcast because
Yeah.
we do whatever the fuck we want, but they can't on the TV. Is what
But
we're
in
saying.
Circle It here, this is what happened.
Get on and sit at the front next to these inconsiderate arseholes.
This is the thing, right? I say Jay is my favourite character, but Will, I would say, is just as good as Jay in so many ways. One of my favourite moments from Will, and it's moments that always pop up from Will, is like he's the smartest man in the room, but he's the worst at being able to keep what he shouldn't say to himself at times. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And he's
totally
got like word diarrhea and whatnot. Do you remember when he has that big girl? What's her name?
Oh,
She
I
attaches
can't remember
herself
her name.
to him.
She was so good.
Big, I don't know, but the whole thing is she'll give you a blowjob, like, and it's a moral dilemma because
guaranteed
it's like,
blowjob.
you know, I've been
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
situation when you're young, and it's like, oh, she's really annoying,
Yeah.
she's not attractive, whatever, but at the same time, like, if she's gonna give me a blowy,
You've done it a
maybe,
few
maybe
times,
I
Joey.
should.
Come on,
And
let's be honest.
In the end, he ends up dumping her at Neil's party,
Yep.
and she burst out in tears, right? And she's like crying her eyes out. And he's like saying whatever, he's trying to get her to calm down. And Simon's girlfriend at the time goes, her dad died last month.
And he he has no idea about that either, does it?
The best part ever of the Inbetweeners was this.
Well, that's awful. Obviously. But not.
What?
Well, it's not. It's not relevant, is it?
You disgust me.
Brutal.
It is. It is absolutely. It's brutal, but it's fucking true, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it
Like,
is.
it's not relevant. And as well, like, if your dad's just died, why are you giving out blowies for fun? Do you know what I mean?
Was the blowy thing actually false the whole time? Did she actually chuck out blowies? We never really find out.
No, we do at the end of the episode.
What?
Neil got a blowy off her.
No, I don't remember that. Did he
Yeah,
actually?
I'm sure he did. Let us know in the comments. I'm pretty sure he did.
What I would say that we have to talk about was that moment where they do go to university. Do you remember? It's Simon's girlfriend's sister they go and
Oh,
visit.
yes. He eats the bonsai tree.
He
Yes, he
eats
do.
the bonsai tree. He does everything that the university
The
boys
commander
say.
and the bombardier.
And also, can I just say that the university lads are exactly the same as every single group of university
Yes.
boys in the entire world. What university was it? Was it York?
Warwick.
Warwick. Yeah. I do remember that. And then obviously there's this sort of mythical Dutch sort of housemate as well, which gets involved in some
Sex
description.
addicts.
Yeah,
And
well,
they
apparently.
They don't mind if you wipe it on the curtains.
I mean, if she's from Amsterdam, she must be.
There you go.
And then obviously you got what? It's Neil pissing himself.
Yeah.
And then obviously the whole culmination of the entire episode is that Simon is guaranteed sex in this episode. But what's Jay's advice to do beforehand?
Bash one out.
Bash one out, which is what every young lad was told you should always do. But it never quite worked out, did it?
Yeah, he couldn't get up. He's slapping the thing.
Why was
it's
he
a nightmare
slapping
for
it?
I don't know.
And then why would it make it better if his girlfriend at the time puts on the condom with her mouth?
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. But I tell you what.
Or bum.
It would help my, readiness a bit if you put it on with your mouth.
With my mouth?
Or bum.
So if it isn't going to be number one, then you're going to have to put Inbetweeners in number two.
I
aren't you?
have got Inbetweeners at number 2 for me. It obviously comes runner-up to The Office. So that means let's go on to your number 2.
Okay. So my number 2 is a show that affected my life immensely. I quote it still to this day. It's Peep Show.
Guinness, please. No logo on the phone.
An iconic portrayal of mundane British life in the early 2000s, told quite literally through the eyes of Jez and Mark, a painfully awkward set of mates, one neurotic, self-critical, straight-laced, and very much on the corporate ladder. The other, a failed musician, starving artist, and free spirit. Really, they shouldn't get on, but in time, they become reliant on each other in a charming way. The lads are shaped by escapades often pushing beyond the pale of decency and into complete and utter cringe. All with the constant narration of their own unfettered thoughts in a stream of consciousness so honest it had to be watched.
So do you know what, right? I was late to Peep Show. I watched it, I think, once the series had actually commenced. And when it was on TV, I wasn't watching it at the time. And do you know what? I just think, like, the element of how it was filmed in terms of that point of view, right?
Have you seen the camera rig that they have to do to actually put it on?
It's mad.
It is mental how they actually did it. In fact, I think they had to build setups just to get the cameras right. And there's a funny story about when they first created the show, they had just like shit budget camcorders. They strapped it to like a helmet, like a bike helmet to actually do it.
And I thought that I would be put off in the early days by the way of that. Like, it's like, oh, I don't really like the cinematography of it, element or whatever. But after I watched a few episodes, I really did start to get hooked on it. And obviously, Mark, for me, was my favourite character.
So, what is your favourite moment then?
Honestly, it's when, you know, when they go to a rave and I think they've done pills. I think they've all done pills. And Mark pretends he's done it, right? So he's trying to act like he's done a pill and whatnot and but he's got no idea. He's never done any drugs. Of course he's never, the type of person
He's always trying to join in, Mark, but he was always on the outskirts of it, wasn't he?
He's just not that guy, is he, right? So either way, he's pretending he's done it and he says this one line.
And do you know what? I also think I might be getting the famous munchies.
Now, this is the point where I would know that the fella has definitely not done any sort of ecstasy, because everyone knows that's ever done any drug like this. Weed, yes, you'll get the munchies on it. Ecstasy, very much not. You don't want any food for a good few days after doing any of that sort of shit.
No, Mark was be sitting in bed with a good book, a good historical book, doesn't he? Really, let's be honest, not be doing ecstasy.
What about you? What's your favourite moment from
My
the series?
favourite moment involves a certain dog called Mummy. Do you remember this story?
Yeah, I remember.
Basically, long story short, this love interest that Jez has, I believe, she has a sort of little puppy called Mummy. It's a beautiful little dog. And it ends up going completely south in a way that you couldn't really script, where the dog ends up getting killed, which is just, first of all, just ridiculous. And then he ends up putting it on a barbecue. Again, no idea why. Then it ends up in a bin bag. Again.
On a boat.
And then is it Jez that has to end up eating this barbecued food, which he says, you know, is just a load of barbecued normal stuff. Delicious. He puts it on and he's cringing because he knows that it's Mummy in a bag. I honestly, I couldn't stop laughing on that one.
One more I've got to add before we move on, though, is one that we always reference, bearing in mind that a lot of the people that watch us have obviously come over from the football channel. It is when Mark goes to play football, and it's basically your favourite line ever, isn't it?
It is. But do you know what? You introduced it to me because I couldn't remember that line from the show, but it was ultimately, should we say it after three?
One, two, three.
Kick it in the goal hole. Did he have some fucking in there as well?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
yeah,
brilliant.
he goes, I'm going to kick it in the fucking goal hole.
I was gonna, kick it up the other end and just put one right in their fucking goal hole, but no dice.
I've never seen a man look more awkward in a bib than Mark Corrigan in that moment. He just looks like he's never even played sport in any way.
I've seen nonces in prison programmes look a little bit like him in a bib.
Are we linking Mark Corrigan now with the nonce?
Here, look, you can...
Give me your third choice.
So my third choice is the one and only Fools and Horses.
I agree that Dell gets a bit out of hand, but I think it's unfair to say that everything he touches goes wrong.
Now, everyone's either seen or heard of Only Fools, but if you haven't, it's a sitcom that ran for 20-odd years in the UK, starring the likes of David Jason as Delboy and Robert Lindsay as his younger brother, Rodney, along with many other brilliant characters. Now, many people are going to be annoyed, and maybe especially older viewers, that it's not at least number 2 on this list, and they would be annoyed for good reason. Like, the show was just brilliant. They faced tough tasks like replacing key characters when actor Leonard Pierce, who played Grandad, he died while filming series 4, I believe it was, and they replaced him with Uncle Albert, who, despite not being as popular, was still a really, really good character in the show. But I think that the thing with Only Fools and Horses, is it's not just the fact that it's so funny, which makes it so good. It's the fact that it is brilliantly written, and it's the wit showed by characters. And you're about to be confused when I link this here, right? Walking Dead. Breaking Bad, right? Shows like this, every episode of that show, or at least every other episode, will follow a very common trend, which is main character gets themselves into a seemingly unescapable dilemma, and by using their IQ, their wit, their intelligence, and their streetwiseness and stuff like that, they're able to get themselves out of that situation. And Only Fools and Horses does that exact same thing, but in obviously a way more comedic fashion, in my opinion.
For the third and last time of asking, who nicked the microwave off the back of the lorry?
I did.
So the question I've got for you, mate, is how did you get into the show? Because it's a little bit before our times, isn't it? Like, I remember my old man sort of raving about the show. He had it on TV all the time. It was on Gold, wasn't it? Constantly. Yeah. But I never really got into it because I felt it was a little bit before my time.
Well, there you go. Like, obviously, it was on Gold. So, obviously, I used to watch the reruns of it on that. It did run Christmas specials. Like, I think even after the series wrapped up, they used to do a Christmas special each year. And the Christmas specials were absolutely phenomenal, by the way. Like, they were so good. So, like, Christmas Day, that was a thing. Like, you watched EastEnders, you watched Only Fools. I think the last one of that went on till like 2005 or something like that. But obviously the main reason, the main contributing factor is I'm the youngest of 5. I've got an older brother, obviously my dad and whatever. And that means between 5 of us, mum and dad, I'm 7th in the pecking order of who gets to pick what is being watched on the TV at home. Do you know what I mean? So I naturally was watching a lot of shows like Only Fools and Horses, Saved by the Bell, like these sort of shows that were before my time, but that's just because I'm the youngest in the house and I'm watching what my older siblings watched at the time.
So the moment that sticks in my memory, mate, is when Del Boy leans up against the bar trying to look all cool with his mate Trigger and he falls straight for it.
We're on a winner here, Tree, all right? Play it nice and cool, son. Nice and cool, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for me, there's obviously so many moments that I love. Like, there's the chandelier. There's the scene where Rodney tries to help the crazy woman get home from the pub and ends up telling her that he's a doctor.
Don't shout.
You touched me!
No, it's all right, because, I'm a doctor.
But most of all, my main takeaway from it, and I'm sure Del Boy didn't come up with this phrase, is just he who dares wins. Because it's come from a TV series and it is a phrase that I like to live my life by. Either way, let's move on to yours. What is your number 3?
So for me, my next one has to be IT Crowd.
Did you see that ludicrous display last night?
So the series revolves around the staff of an IT department and it focuses on 2 guys, Maurice Moss and work-shy Roy Treneman, and their new boss, Jen Barber, who knows absolutely nothing about IT, but has to go down to a dungeon and make her way through trials and tribulations of these 2 blokes at Renham Industries.
Yeah, the IT Crowd was a good one. It had a very iconic intro as well, right? Yeah. And I remember I used to have it on DVD and I used to have to fall asleep to like watching movies or whatever, and I used to always get woke up by that intro because remember on DVD it would kick you back to like
and it would always be louder than the actual theme tune. It would be horrible.
Yeah.
And did you have like those over-ear earphones where you listen to, or you just listen to it on the telly?
No, not in my house, mate. We weren't earphones. What is your favourite moment from the IT Crowd?
Do you know what? The entire show is summarised by one moment. Roy has to go into a theatre building. It's a key moment of his life. Again, he's obviously, you know what these things are like. He's always trying to get a go at the end of it. He's trying to show off. And he ends up finding himself desperate to go to the toilet, which, you know, again, it doesn't sound fairly, you know, worrying. But he ends up going to a disabled toilet. Now, again, you know, we've all done it. We've all had to go to a disabled toilet. The problem is he gets a knock on the door. So he's flustered. He's sort of doesn't know what to do. He ends up pretending that he's disabled. The boys have to knock down the door. They then ask, what's wrong with you? He makes out that he can't use his legs. They go, where's the wheelchair?
I love,
and he hasn't got the wheelchair.
I love the part when his co-workers see him being carried out and he's just sort of looking at them.
Oh, that was a classic moment. Yeah, I love that one.
So finally, we do agree on one. We've got it ranked in the same place here. Number 4, we have both got Extras. Extras is a series that delves into what goes on behind the scenes in show business, and the series follows aspiring actor and writer Andy Millman as he has multiple run-ins with high-profile celebrities, most of which are really awkward while on his own rise to fame. Now, the real hero of the show for me is Stephen Merchant, and that's because it was our real introduction to him. As I said before, he was featured briefly in The Office, but this is where we really got to see the acting chops, where he played the character of Agent Darren Lamb.
Right.
Hiya.
Were you masturbating when I came in?
Sort of, yeah.
And ironically, despite it being able to attract Hollywood names, Ben Stiller, Kate Winslet, Samuel Jackson, Daniel Radcliffe, Orlando Bloom, David Bowie, one of the other stars of this show, for me, perfectly called by his on-screen name he's known best for, is Barry from EastEnders.
Oh, for fuck's sake. He's got so many memeable moments, hasn't he, Barry?
Oh, mate, he is the absolute best.
Has he
in
built
that
a
show.
career after this show purely from the meme of him on the show?
Easily. Easily. And the relationship, I would say, between Darren Lamb and Barry is one of the best on-screen relationships we've seen in any comedy show.
You know, Barry can do all sorts. Do you serious?
You do love me, Janine. You do. I know you do.
Huh? Do you comical?
Pat, you trod on me foot. Get off!
He's a singer as well.
Mustang Sally!
Loud, isn't it?
Loud?
Go on then, favourite episode from Extras?
I have to say Les Dennis. Do you remember he was in the pantomime?
He's in
and
Panto,
do
yeah.
you know what I really liked about the Les Dennis one is he was really open to taking the piss out of himself, because
Everyone
that was a serious
mate,
one.
Off the back of The Office, yeah, when any celebrity, A-list celebrity's phone rang, and maybe Les Dennis at the time wasn't A-list, right? But you had Kate Winslet, you had everyone in there. The phone rang, Ricky Gervais is on the phone. We want you to come on and basically completely take the piss out of yourself and play a character of what maybe your public perception is or something like that. And these celebs would jump at the chance, as did Les Dennis.
Was that too far away from reality, though?
I
Do you know
don't
what
know.
I mean?
I don't know.
I think it was pretty close. I think he might be playing himself.
Best part from that Les Dennis episode?
I mean, literally where he sat naked in the changing room for me.
That's not the best bit for me,
Go
though.
on, what was it?
My bit is when he calls up the Sun newspaper.
I just spotted him shopping in New Bond Street.
Doubt he afford much around there, can he?
Well, he can, because I just saw him and he was spending a fucking shitload of cash, all right? So put that in. Make sure you put that in.
I absolutely love that bit as well. What's your favourite episode?
Mate, my one has to be, which I think was the first episode. Second episode this was. First was Ben Stiller. Second episode, Ross Kemp. The whole episode basically is Andy Millman's on a film set with Ross Kemp, and he bumps into Ross Kemp, and Ross Kemp is almost playing Grant Mitchell, but in real life. He's got this overinflated ego and perception of himself, and they're filming opposite another film set where Vinnie Jones is being filmed, and Andy's like rival in the series. Another extra that he goes through the sort of path with on their rise to fame is Greg, right? And Greg's on the set with Vinnie Jones. Either way, there's multiple scenes of Ross Kemp saying now, like, yeah, Vinnie Jones plays a hard man, but he's actually just a footballer, whereas I'm a real life hard man. Yeah. And there's the one scene when he says,
I'd like to see him come at me with all that I'm a hard bastard stuff. I'd say, put the baseball bat down. It's just you and me. Skin on skin.
Andy Millman's lapping it all up, takes it all in. What's he do? He goes to Greg and he almost inadvertently does a bit of shit stirring. Greg then tells Vinnie Jones, and we get one of the best moments from the series when Vinnie Jones confronts Ross Kemp.
You think you're well hard, don't you?
Are you hard?
No, you're not.
What about after the stuff that goes on where he talks about what his absolute rock bottom would be?
Go to Family Affairs. I've had an offer. There's no bullying at Family Affairs. They're really nice people. Sure.
Yeah, the last thing I'd say on Extras as well is, like, when we talk about the relevance culturally of it, it's almost like, I'm not saying people weren't doing it at the time, but it's almost like Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant looked into the future, because the whole thing is about the lengths that people will go to and the amount that people will sell out just for that shot at fame, at what we'd now call clout, and just to have their moment in the light, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And to be fair, did Ricky Gervais have to go through that process to sort of get where he was? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think he actually did. And like you say, there are so many other actors and actresses that have had to go through that now and sort of done a tell-all story. I mean, the sort of the impact that Hollywood has had to do, where you have to do anything to get to the top, like, it's coming out now. There's so many other people.
It held up a mirror on
is.
society at the time, but then that's heightened now, even like when you look at what people are doing on TikTok, on OF, on all these different platforms and whatever. Like, Extras called it very, very early on. There was a moment in the Christmas special, wasn't there, when he meets with his new agent at the time, and you realise that he really is just desperate for fame rather than to actually achieve what he set out for in the first place.
What do you want?
Rich and famous. And on the telly.
Doesn't he go in the Big Brother house as well?
Yeah, in fact, that's the best moment from the Extras Christmas special is he has a mental breakdown, more or less, inside the Big Brother house, and he looks down the camera and he has a sort of monologue, and it's like he's labelling the producers of the show scum, basically, and it's like he has this realisation, this epiphany of like, what am I doing? Why have I done this all? And that was the moment that I think had like half the nation in tears. I think it was even on Christmas Day we saw that. So such a good series, man.
And going from one comedy genius to another, let's talk about our fifth spot. What about Harry Enfield?
Yeah, so Harry Enfield was a sketch show, wasn't it, in the late 90s, early 2000s. It had 5 seasons and a few specials, and it went under a couple of different names, but the peak for me was around 1997 when it was called Harry Enfield and Chums, and that was when you had classic characters like Wayne and Waynetta, the slobs, Tim, nice but dim, the old gits, the randy old ladies, Michael Payne. Do you remember this one, Michael Payne?
I do.
He was the parody of Michael Caine, and he was absolutely brilliant. My name is Michael Payne.
My name is Michael Payne. And I am a nosy neighbour.
The best of all to come out of the show, and I think everyone would agree on this, at the time, it was just labelled Kevin the Teenager, but it obviously transpired into what I believe is one of the greatest movies of all time, by the way, in Kevin and Perry Go Large. Would you agree that that's the best character?
That is absolutely the best character. I mean, do you remember? I remember the first time he sort of came up in the show, and it was fairly innocuous. Do you remember he had like this sort of transformation, butterfly-esque, where
he turns 13,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, he literally turns 13. The clock hits midnight. He comes down. And he's a completely different person.
Yeah,
what a moment that was,
mate. And Kevin and Perry, the movie, like I've told you so many times, that's one of my favourite movies of all time. Like I absolutely love Kevin and Perry, and obviously as well, like Kathy Burke's portrayal of Perry was absolutely brilliant. Favourite moment from those sketches in the Harry Enfield show is, you know, when Perry comes back from Manchester.
All right, Kev.
So there's our top 5 UK comedies of all time, but I'm very interested to hear your guys. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Let us know your lists in the comment section. And please, we are building a channel. We're putting the work in here, so make sure you are subscribed. It helps us out massively. Hit a like on the video, share it with a friend, and we will see you all in the next one.